All right, everyone, it's time for the run-up to what could possibly be Bloody Monday. That is tomorrow, at least in local time. I realize that it's still Saturday night in parts of the United States. I'm in the Netherlands, so it'll hit here faster. I'm just joking. Not how time works. We should, by the way, get rid of daylight savings time and standardized time worldwide, just to make everything more simple. It would be a small price to pay if someone living in the middle of the Pacific Islands is actually waking up at 1 a.m. because the time zones have shifted. Anyway, just saying. Here's my read on it. Of course, the other day, Siliconvalleybank went belly up. It's then been taken over effectively by the government, the FDIC getting involved, etc. You also had Silvergate, which is a smaller bank, mainly crypto geared. Yeah, if you have crypto, you lost a lot of money yesterday. I'm still holding on for dear life. I think at this point, looking at the socioeconomic conditions in much of the world, I might as well just hold the crypto because it's probably got a better shot than the fiat currency at holding up over the intermediate future. Just saying, and there's a trade-off, of course. Here's what I believe the likelihood is. I do not believe that Siliconvalleybank going belly up causes so much contagion that we end up with another Great Recession. It's possible. The fact that we're talking about it having a measurable possibility that that's going to be the case in the coming months should probably concern people. But if it does happen, let's say that 1 in 10 chance happens. We end up with a Great Recession style collapse, and the government gets involved too much or too little. You see bailouts, whatever you see as a reaction to that. And they probably would bail out the billionaires and leave everyone else hanging. It'd be a repeat of 2008 all over again, probably spawn a new Occupy movement. Here's what I think will happen in the immediate aftermath if that does occur. You've already seen a bunch of preemptive news and statements involving people in the Biden admin mainly that preemptively blame the Fed for overshooting the mark with regards to their interest rates. If they hadn't have raised interest rates, Siliconvalleybank would be solvent and all these other banks would be fine and everything's going to hell because of the Federal Reserve not doing the right thing. Biden, to his credit, the one smart thing he's done as president was last year, I think it was in fucking last May, so we're talking literally almost a year ago, came out and said that his idea of how to tackle inflation was let the Fed operate and do its job. And the Fed, of course, began raising interest rates to fight the Bidenflation because we have significant, at this point, stagnant inflation rates in the United States. Core inflation remains historically very high. It's still right up there with the 70s era. And so you had to raise interest rates to siphon money out of the economy effectively. Here's the thing. They've already preemptively shown you their cards. They've already revealed to you what their operative strategy is going forward. It's to blame shift. The Biden administration will blame the Fed if things collapse. They probably would have had problems with or without Fed action, though. This is the part that they're seeking to hide. Passing the buck, basically. Now, let me ask the Biden fans something. What group in the United States is most likely to support the concept of auditing or ending the Fed? Because you're identifying them as causing a financial crisis potentially in the coming days. If that happens, are you going to join the libertarian movement in saying that the Fed should be abolished, or at the very least it should be audited and look through what the fuck they do? Are you going to join them, or are you going to continue to be hypocrites? Because I've been called like a conspiracy theory and a wacko for thinking that government agencies should be audited at all. Like, the idea is that these groups that are comprised of just a bunch of human beings are beyond reproach for some reason. Unless it's, the cops, depending on who the victim was in the latest cop-involved shooting. Depending on their color of skin, they may or may not skate. It's more selective with them. I keep hearing that only morons want to audit the Fed. You're trying to waste people's time. Let them do their job, man. Biden trusts them. Biden will throw them under the bus on day one if anything bad happens, and we've got a couple more years of his lackluster stewardship to go. Like I pointed out last year, I didn't really see rosy things happening economically for the United States in this year. There's a good chance of an actual recession, not the Biden foreshock recession, the mini session we got mid last year, quarter 2 and 3. That was a bump in the road. We still have the inflation. The interest rates will probably go higher. You're beginning to see strain on the banking system, and this is not the only example of that. This is the largest banking failure since 2008. Well, what the fuck was happening in 2008? Yes, it might not be quite as big as the biggest banks that failed during that particular crisis, but it's up there. It's one of the top 20 banks in the United States. Part of it was their overexposure to government bonds, and then the Fed is involved. And part of it is just they dealt so heavily with tech and upstarts. But the tech and upstart thing that boomed under the lockdownerism has worn off. And this is why Amazon and Facebook and all these other companies are hemorrhaging money. Twitter as well. I note that Elon Musk is the only one uniquely targeted in specific hit piece articles with regards to the loss of stock value in his company. It's his fault. For everyone else, it's just the economy, stupid. But for him, it's his own personal decision making. That's why Twitter did better than most of the other contemporary tech firms during that same period of time, actually. So I do not predict that we're about to go spiraling down the toilet. But it's enough of a possibility to actually make this video. Again, since this is like the anti-black pill central channel at this point, the fact that I'm bringing it up maybe concerns people a little bit more because I don't do the alarmist thing. But alarms are going off, just that there's the possibility of a replication of a very, very difficult time economically for a vast plurality of the population. That was the late 2000s through early 2010s crisis. I mean, we had basically a lost half decade with regards to our economy. Even then, for a couple more years, it was still struggling. It was better. I mean, not every house on your street was foreclosed. People generally got their jobs back. Unemployment remained stubbornly high, and other problems remained roughly until the middle of Trump's term, when he had instituted economic reforms that actually worked. By the way, that's the only other group they would blame. They're already setting up to do that too. Biden and his people will blame the Fed to shift it off themselves. The leftoid craptivists will blame Trump. Just like somehow the derailment in Ohio and East Palestine is his fault for unconnected regulations, which had nothing to do with the derailment. 2 years after Buttigieg and Biden were in charge of U.S. transport, and they never did anything about it. Still, Orange Man bad, it was his fault. I'm sure that they'll dig through the old news archives and they'll find some banking deregulation that has literally nothing to do with this, or some Fed policy change during his tenure. If there is a Bloody Monday or a bad week sort of event and more banks go under, look for them to immediately begin crafting articles that completely twist themselves into pretzels to blame Trump. Biden will probably just focus on the Fed because, the people around him, not him himself, actually have strategic minds and don't want to get fucked out of office, basically. But the leftoid craptivists, they won't get the memo. They'll be twisting themselves in knots trying to explain how Trump is involved. Yes, several years after he leaves office, he's totally responsible for U.S. fiscal policy, if and only if things are going poorly. It was funny when they tried to dovetail the rising gas costs at their peak last year with Trump too. Well, if Trump hadn't played appeasement with the Russians, none of this would be happening. It's Orange Man's fault. I hear that so often at this point, it's like, I'm considering blaming Trump for my problems too. Oh, the computer just fucked off under the wheels of the bus? Trump sent his gremlins in or something. The light stopped working. Damn Trump and those light bulb regulations in the U.S. that don't have any impact on EU-made light bulbs. I mean, this makes about as much sense as what they're spinning anyway, so I might as well get in on the party. Oh, I shot someone? Trump pulled the trigger. It's basically, that's the name of the game, it seems. That and blame the Fed, but don't audit them. Blame the Fed, but the Fed is good and you should worship the ground they walk on. And hey, their protections are protecting us, but they didn't protect us. But hey, they're responsible, but don't get rid of them. That's basically liberal logic at the moment. It's very strange. That's about all. Peace out.